Everyone sees the results on the field. Like I said, 2-time All-Star, 30-30 club, 2,000 hit club, 328 career home runs. We all see the product on our TVs, but no one sees the years and years of hard work that leads you to those moments to becoming a pro. So I guess my first question is, when did you decide to go all in and give all of your effort to baseball? And then when did you know you were like good enough to be a pro at this thing?
So I lived in San Jose basically until I was 12. I kind of bounced around a little bit before that, but and then when I was 12, I moved to Southern California to Tustin, and that's when I played for OD. But um, yeah, so when I was about maybe 9 years old, a kid on my little league team had the dad had a pitching machine, which wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that common back in the early mid '80s,
Yeah.
and we had an empty side yard. He had a pool in his yard, and so my our dads were coaching together, and he said, "Hey, why don't we put a net in the side of your yard, and I'll put my machine in there. We could have practice at your house, when on off days, and let the
Yeah.
kids hit." And so anyway, so that happened, and we were on the same team for a couple years, and so I had that advantage. So I was hitting all the time,
Yeah.
and then after a couple years, they took their machine away, and my dad, fortunately bought a machine, and I just hit all the time. We had a hoop at our house too,
Uh,
but I was hitting more than I was shooting baskets, so I was never really a good shooter, and so basketball wasn't high on my list. I played for till my freshman year of high school,
yeah.
but I was always hitting. And I think what happened is probably by the time I would say heading into high school, I made varsity as a freshman. I was a different type of hitter. Because I think I hit so much, I didn't strike out much. I was skinny and
Yeah.
small at first. I grew a lot throughout high school, so I was more of a leadoff hitter. I could run. Didn't so I hit for high average, and so that was kind of my thing. Like really good at learning how to have the good hand-eye coordination
Yeah.
with the bat and the ball and all that.
Contact.
And I think as I got into high school and made varsity as a freshman, and then got to play on, the scout teams where they gather the better players in the area and play together with wood bats. And as a sophomore, I started doing that, and I was actually able to, do pretty well against good competition. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of when my eyes started opening, and I think the scouts as well, that I had a shot.
Dude, every pro that I've like met or talked to, they always say like there's one person from high school that was just like this dominant pitcher that they could never hit off. Is there anyone from like high school or like your younger years that you're like, dude, this guy was the best in the world, but they never really panned out and became a pro?
Yeah, there's definitely those guys. So we had a guy who played in the minor leagues for a little bit, and you went to USC, right? Is that where you
I'm a
went?
big USC fan. I ended up going to school in Boston, but big
Oh,
USC
got it. Oh,
guy.
got it. Okay, for some reason I thought you went there, but yeah, he pitched at USC, and then went to the minor leagues for a little bit with the Yankees and blew out his arm. But yeah, his name's Kent Donnelly, and he was both against on the opposing team, and he was on my All-Star teams and all that, and he was just dominant through absolute gas as
Yeah.
from the time he was 12 years old, 11, 12 years old on.
It's crazy. There's so many like great athletes that like don't even make it to the pros, and it's like the hard work is, I think, the thing that separates the ones who make it and the ones that don't. Obviously, you made it. You were drafted 16th overall, first round pick in 1991, straight out of high school to the Toronto Blue Jays as an 18-year-old. I know when you are 18, you're like, I know everything. I'm so sick. And then you grow up and you realize, like, when you're 18, you know nothing and you're kind of an idiot. What was like the first major life lesson you learned being on your own in a new country at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot really. I signed. I was supposed to play at Stanford. I signed literally the last day. I went to the first baseball practice at Stanford,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, I was on campus. And back then, it's once you went to class, you were no longer eligible to sign with the team that drafted you. So the day before the first class started, Blue Jays offered me, a lot of money, and it was a whole long story, but I had to go talk to the coach and tell him I was going to sign. So I ended up signing, and I stayed there and went to the fall winter quarter. So I think it was a nice little transition because I had to be on my own from a college perspective,
Yeah.
as much as you are on your own in college, and had to start kind of learning to do things. I have a mom who is always very nurturing, so she did all my laundry, she made food, every meal.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that type of stuff was a nice kind of toe in the water in college for 5 6 months, whatever it was, before I go into spring training. And then my spring training, I did I would kind of knew how to do laundry at this point, but I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And Carlos Delgado, who's been a good friend, he was my roommate, and
Wow.
he kind of taught me how to do certain things just to live life outside of baseball. And it's the little
Yeah.
things, just like any kid. How do I grocery shop and make my meals and do my
Yeah.
laundry? It's those types of things, and that's I think that's always tough when you break away from home, especially if you grow up in a house where one of your parents or both your
Yeah.
parents are very nurturing.
With a great mom. I'm always like, if you have a really good mom, it's really hard to go to college.
That's
My
right.
my little brother is going through that now. Did you make the spring training roster that year for the Blue Jays?
Yes. So I part of my deal when I signed was that I would get invited to big league camp, and so I went to
Hmm.
big league camp, and there's no way I was going to make the team out of spring training. So that was
Yeah.
'92. Blue Jays went on to win the World Series that year and the next
Yeah.
year. So yeah, so I was in spring training, then went to A ball, which happened to be our home stadium was the spring training site. So that was kind of nice.
Cool.
It's a pretty easy travel league. And then the next year I went to Double A, which was Knoxville, Tennessee, and I
Yeah.
think I was actually playing for the Knoxville Smokies the same time
Okay.
that Peyton Manning and Todd Helton were at University of Tennessee.
Nice. Nice.
So it's kind of interesting time. But yeah, so I and then I got called up in September my second year from
So
from
end of the
Double A.
season, you got called up.
And I got called up and I snuck a World Series ring, even though I was 0 for 6 in my two games that I played in. And but I did give Joe Carter a day off, who ended up hitting the
Yeah.
series-ending home run. So maybe I
Yeah.
saved him from getting hurt that day. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah. So the '94, I went to AAA, and that was kind of when I sort of started figuring things out and started, you know, putting up bigger numbers as a hitter. Got
Yeah.
called up about, I think maybe May or June for about a month. Struggled, got sent back down, and then the strike happened. So there was no,
Wow.
getting called back up that year.
The whole going, getting called up and getting sent back down, getting drafted first round, call it like there's such an up and down to the beginning of an MLB career. It takes a lot of what did it take more mental stamina than you thought it was going to take?
Yeah, but at that time I was young and ambitious, and so I was
Yeah.
really focused on just trying to figure things out. Who I was as a player, learning how to, trying to get better all the time. Talking to
Yeah.
teammates, coaches, and just trying to absorb as much as I can. So I don't think at that stage there was it didn't feel like work. It was
Mm.
still baseball, still a game.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say there was a lot of pressure in the minor leagues because you're just, you're a bunch of, it's almost like a college type culture where you
Sure.
have a bunch of young guys and you have older guys too, especially as you get up to double A, triple A, you might have guys
Yeah.
that are 30, 32, 33 years old that are kind of on the
Crazy.
way back down, trying to get back up.
Hmm.
So yeah, but the lower minor leagues, a bunch of guys in their, 19 to 23 years old,
Hmm.
and you're just out there playing baseball, having a good time and working hard. And that was kind of the culture. The Blue Jays were really good about Pat Gillick, who's in the Hall of Fame, was the general manager, and found it important to try to draft quality people beyond just talented players.
Yeah.
And so we had really good guys, and it made it, I think, a lot easier to to kind of grow together
Hmm.
and support each other, because we were all, it wasn't, I'm sure some guys were cutthroat, but we were kind of, all hoping we all made it. And,
Yeah.
a lot of us did, a lot of guys didn't, but it wasn't a cutthroat, culture.
Yeah. You guys were a team. You cared about each other, and you obviously did make it. In 2000, you played all 162 games. Everyone always talks about baseball being just this crazy long grind. When I was playing Little League and we had 18 games, I'm like, wow, this is a grind. And now you're doing 162 in 2000. From 1998 to 2005, you played over 150 games every single season. In your career, you ended up playing 1,951 baseball games and took over 7,000 at-bats. How did you stay motivated to be out there through that entire stretch? Because that's a lot of dedication to the game.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard, I think, to stay motivated. Just the reason you make it is because you have that, that drive to that competitive side where you just want to, early on you want to prove yourself, and then you want to Then
Yeah.
you want to establish yourself, and then you want to continue to put up the kind of years that you expect to have from an individual standpoint. And then the longer you play, I think the more and more important trying to win a championship, which I unfortunately never got to do, but like those types of priorities take hold over your own um, status because you've already established yourself. So no, I don't think it was that hard to stay motivated. I think later in my career it got to be, and that's kind of why when I retired, I could have kept playing, and I
Oh,
was, as opportunities were more Midwest, East Coast, and I was just my family became my priority. I had two daughters
hmm.
at that time who were my oldest was about to start kindergarten, and I didn't want to
On
keep
the
moving
West
everyone
Coast?
around. Yeah, we always lived in Southern California in the
Yeah.
off seasons, and so it just got harder and harder, and I think at that point the grind got to be a bit much, and I'm home a week, gone a week, and then when you have little kids
Yeah.
who they were on a totally different schedule. Even when I was home, I'd get home from a game at midnight, game's over at 10. By the time I get out of the stadium, it's 11-hour drive
Hmm.
back from, Dodger Stadium or wherever. And, so they're asleep and then they're up early because they're babies. And my wife is trying to let me sleep. So I'm ready for
Yeah.
the next day. So you have a few hours a day to kind of hang out with your family. And then it's back to the grind the next night. So I think, for me, once I started having a family and all that, it sort of got to the point where like, okay, I think I'm done. I've done a lot in the game and could do more, but it
Hmm.
just became more of a job at that point. I think to constantly be traveling.
Well, it's admirable because your priorities became your family first and foremost. And I think that's like every man's priority should be their family. But we obviously see a lot in sports where some guys disregard that part of life and really just hone in on the sports. So it's cool to hear that you did focus on that. You mentioned living in LA. You mentioned the Blue Jays. You were traded 3 times in your career. In 1999 from Toronto to LA. In 2005, the Dodgers traded you to Arizona. The next year, Arizona traded you to the Mets, where you ended up finishing your career. Being traded is so foreign for like every single person that has a job except for pro athletes. So I'm wondering, like, what are those moments like that first time you got traded and then the moments preceding? Is it difficult? Were you excited? What was the like mental aspect of getting traded to a new team?
Yeah, I think the first time was definitely strange, but I sort of kind of prompted the first one because the Blue Jay had my first few years. I was in a kind of a challenging spot with the manager. I was playing part time, mostly
Mm,
against righties, but it wasn't a great situation. And I was playing pretty well, but not. I was kind of being held back a little bit. And then he got fired. New manager came in. I started all of a sudden. I went from hitting like 6 or 7 in the lineup to batting second or third. And that's when I had the 30-30 year. The next year I hit
yeah.
over 40. And now all of a sudden I have one more year to free agency.
Hmm.
And so the team basically they told my agent that they're either going to sign me to a long-term deal or trade me because they had just
Yeah.
had a couple years earlier the Robbie Alomar, Hall of Famer. He
Yeah.
walked away in free agency, and it was kind of a big, kind of like Otani just did,
Like
right?
Otani
You
just
know,
did to my team, my Angels.
exactly. And I'm not comparing myself to Otani. No one's like him, but yeah, I mean the Angels got nothing out of that. And anyway, so the Blue Jays were not going to do that. So the team was up for sale. We were looking up at the Yankees every year. The Red Sox were
Oh,
good. The Orioles were really good. And we were always like one or two players away. We had a really good core, incredible core. Like we should have been a dynasty. We had Chris Carpenter and Roy Halladay, coming up. They were a couple years behind me. I played with both
yeah.
of them for a couple years. And we had Carlos Delgado. We had great leadoff hitter Shannon Stewart. I mean, we had this
Hmm.
incredible core, and they just couldn't spend a little bit to supplement what we had in the organization, and because they were up for sale, they're trying to anyway.
Yeah.
So I kind of prompted that trade. And once I went to the Dodgers, it was cool because it was home, but it was definitely weird because I felt like I never expected to leave the Blue Jays, and I
Yeah.
loved all these guys. I love the city, the fans. So that was a weird thing. It took me, I would say, a year to kind of adjust.
Hmm.
One, to being on a new team and new league, but two, because back then it wasn't as much interleague play, so
No,
there's
not at
all new
all.
stadiums. Yeah, you play it within the division usually. I'm sorry, within the coast. So if it was East Coast team, you play against
Yeah.
those interleague games. But it was very foreign to me. I felt like a rookie again, going to these new stadiums, not knowing where to go, not knowing Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or any of these cities.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was kind of strange was being at home because I'd always come home in the off season. Now my two worlds sort of merged, and
Ah,
I didn't feel like I'm supposed to be going to the park. I felt like I'm supposed to be hanging out, relaxing, and going to dinner with, my
yeah.
then girlfriend, now wife, or whatever. So it was definitely a little strange. The next time I got traded was basically we all have seen the movie Moneyball, right? I'm sure you saw
Yeah.
Moneyball. Yeah, so Jonah Hill's character became the GM after he left the A's and came over to the Dodgers. So his name is Paul DePodesta, and we didn't really fit the algorithms as to the team that should win, even though we won the division. So
Yeah.
basically, they traded a quarter of the team. He traded away a quarter of the team, even though we were in first place at the trade deadline. We still hobbled in, won the division barely, and then they didn't keep Beltray. They let some guys
Uh,
go, and so they asked me if I'd waive my no trade because I was a 10-5 player. So once you have 10 years in the big leagues and 5 with the same team, you could block any trade. And I
yeah.
said, you know what? If you guys want to trade me, I'm not gonna stop you, but I am gonna have a strong say in where I go. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of what happened. And then Arizona was rebuilding, so I ended up going to Arizona, and I was kind of burnt out, I think, of being in this like the big spotlight in a big market. So I thought, okay, it sounds kind of nice to go to a smaller market and
Hmm.
relax a little bit and just play baseball. And I was there for just under 2 years. I had another year on my deal, and all of a sudden that team was looking to bring up some young players, and we were kind of out of it. And so I also kind of waived the partial no trade, and the Mets were really good and they needed help because they had some injuries. So went to the Mets, and I think those two trades were easier to handle than the first one for sure.
I can imagine as it got as you got longer in your career, you became a little bit more used to it and meeting all the different fan bases. Is there a big difference between all of these 4 teams' fan bases? Because everyone talks about like the New York market is such a tough market, but I know LA, the Dodgers are the premier team in town, if not named the Lakers. Like, was it tough playing in New York compared to Arizona or LA to Toronto?
Yeah, so they're all a little different. Toronto was great. It was I was on the heels of the 2 championships, so um, the strike, lockout, whatever that definitely affected the fandom up there for a stretch. But I think they embraced our young teams. We had, as I said, we had a really exciting young team,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were great. I came to LA, and there were pretty high expectations.
Yeah.
We had a really tough Giants team that went to the World Series, lost to Angels in '02.
Mm-hmm.
Diamondbacks won in '01 with Randy and Kurt and Luis Gonzalez. So we had a really good division, and we were right there with them every year within a couple games. And then we finally won in the division in '04. But yeah, LA was great. I mean, it's a iconic franchise, and it's
Mm-hmm.
become even more iconic over the last 15 years with all the dominance. But
It's
um,
it's
yeah, it's been
crazy what the
amazing.
Dodgers have become. The Dodgers have become
Yeah.
this like the best franchise in sports, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's the formula is pretty, iron, bulletproof right
Yeah.
now. They spend the money, but they also have great farm system. I mean, it's hard to beat that.
That's the worst
And
part. Everyone who argues for like a salary cap in the sport, I'm like, hey, the Dodgers also have the best farm system. So get rid of the salary cap, they're still gonna win.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, they're doing everything right,
Yeah.
and they get the momentum now. Every player wants to come here, and it's not like you're trying to convince guys to come play and a cold
Cleveland.
a cold city. I don't want to start naming cities, but yeah,
I'll do
exactly.
it. Detroit,
Yeah, there you go.
Cleveland, you're out of here.
There you go.
Um,
But LA is beautiful. But then what I was going to say real quick before you
yeah,
jump in
yeah,
there
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
is the one city that was a little bit, I think, I love playing in New York, and I think because I wasn't a key, I was bottom of the lineup. I didn't have like a huge responsibility, and it was awesome. The energy there, we had a really good team.
Oh yeah.
The one city that was a little odd at the time was Arizona. It was Phoenix because at the time the team was only like 8 years old, and we were kind of everyone's second favorite team, right? A lot of people were
Oh
transplants. So you
yeah.
play the Cubs and you feel like you're a visiting team. You play the Cardinals, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Yankees, Mets. Like you had so many fans from other cities that now lived in Arizona, and I think that'll be a similar vibe in Vegas or certain cities that are big transplant
Yeah.
cities. I feel like it's a little bit tough on the home team to have that kind of hanging over you every time you're playing um, a, a big market
Yeah.
team.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a Chargers fan. Every time I go to Chargers games, I'm like, why are there so many Browns fans here? It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
You brought up the great year of 2002 in my Halos. That was my first sports memory ever, was us winning the World Series. I believe I was like 5 years old. But that year, on May 23rd, 2002, I'm sure you've heard this many times. That day you were 6 for 6 with a double, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 19 total bases, which is the most in a single game. Did you wake up that day having any inclination that you were going to make baseball history, or was it just another day at the ballpark?
No, I had no idea. I started the season off horribly. After hitting 49 home runs in 2001,
Yeah.
I had 3 home runs almost a quarter of the way through the season, going to Milwaukee. I was 0 for 18, maybe my longest 0 for stretch, and then I got to hit my last at bat in LA. Went to Milwaukee, and I was really working on some stuff. I was starting to figure some things out in my swing. The first game, I hit a couple home runs, and so now I have 5 home runs on the year.
Yeah.
And okay, I figured it out. I hit a triple and scored, and we won 1-0 the next day. So okay, I'm starting to click a little bit. And then, we're facing a lefty, Glennon Rush, and when you're facing a lefty, it's like, first at bat, I kind of squeaked a ground ball down the line for a double with 2 strikes, and so it's like, okay, it's nice. Anytime you're facing a lefty and you start off with a hit or a couple RBIs, whatever, it's a great start. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, and it was just one of those days that I'm fortunate that whatever that good fortune landed on me, and it kind of kept going after that. The next day, the first pitch I saw in Arizona from Curt Schilling, I hit a home run and had 2 more hits, and then 2 more home runs the next day. So it was this crazy stretch of being 0 for 18, getting booed at home, to hitting 9 home runs in 5 games.
It's such a good life lesson. You're like, you start the season off, because it's May 23rd is like, it's not so deep in the season, but you've been playing now for a couple months. You're getting booed at home, and then to have that game. You mentioned it was off. You said Glennon Rush.
Yeah, the first couple of hits. Yeah.
Have you talked to him since? Have you connected with him?
Yeah. No, I know Glenn. He's a great guy, and I would see him. I would go to his golf tournament, charity golf tournament. He lived in LA for a long time. He's from Pasadena area, and then he moved to somewhere. I want to say Tennessee or something, but great guy. And and then what's kind of funny is we faced him on May 23rd the next year, and I was also that was one of my tougher years. And I had another home run and had 3 hits that game. So it was just in Milwaukee. So it was just kind of this like weird. There's all these weird little things that would happen. Milwaukee was kind of a strange place for me, where it was my first home run with the Blue Jays. Like, there's all these things that kind of tie back to Milwaukee for whatever reason.
Interesting. Milwaukee, I've been there. It's a great little city. I love that. Like, that's whenever you go there, you're like, oh yeah, I'm about to hit a home run. I wonder if, like, even just like your life now, if you're just like feeling a little bit down, or maybe your golf swing's not going well, just quick trip to Milwaukee, get things right.
There's great golf there, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned hitting a home run off Curt Schilling. One of my favorite questions to ask is, or I've seen longtime pro baseball players answer, is like, was there a pitcher in particular that you had great success against, then maybe one that you that had really good success against you that you remember specifically?
Yeah, no, for sure. I was kind of strange, where I hit the good pitchers really well, and I struggled against the pitchers that maybe weren't as well known or whatever. So I think the guy I hit the best was Mike Hampton, and it's kind of weird because he's a lefty, but I had maybe 5 or 6 or 7 home runs against him, and hit like 600. Just kind of a crazy thing. I did really well hit over 500 against Smoltz, and hit like 450 or something against Maddox. So I hit a lot of those good pitchers well, but then the one amazing pitcher that I had no chance against was Mariano Rivera. I couldn't hit that guy. No chance against Mariano. And so another guy, like a lefty that would come out of the bullpen that you may or may not remember, was a guy named Scott Eyre.
Okay.
EYRE. Yeah. And I think I was maybe 1 for 20 something against him. So it was kind of weird. Like, some guys, and I was big. I didn't like guys that threw cutters. So we go to Arizona, and I'd do well against Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson. And then we'd face Russ Ortiz, who was a solid pitcher, but he threw a cutter, and I didn't like, or Miguel Batista. And he threw a cutter, and, not as well known, or didn't have the pedigree those other guys have, the resume. But those are the guys that I had more trouble against than the big two.
It's crazy. You're like, yeah, all the Hall of Famers you are absolutely crushing. I just looked it up against Smoltz. I think you were 19 for 35. You batted like 543 against John Smoltz, which is Unbelievable. We got about like 3 minutes left. I'm going to let you go in just a little bit here. You wrote a book not too long ago called The Way of Baseball, Finding Stillness at 95 Miles Per Hour. You write about utilizing some Eastern spiritual practices such as meditation. What was the catalyst for you to even explore these new techniques? Not just implement them into your life, but like something is happening. I need to seek a better practice. Like, what was the catalyst that got you to even attempt to learn these things?
Well, I was just always pulled by those philosophies, kind of a Zen type philosophy, like, meditation, things like that. I read some books in, high school and after that, resonated with me. And so I kind of viewed baseball as my arena to learn about myself and to learn about life. Because when you have kind of heightened emotion and so much feels on the line. Baseball, it's great because as a career and as a profession, it really means nothing in terms of in the world. Like, there's a lot more important jobs. It's much more important to be saving lives as a doctor or fireman or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And we're out there trying to win a baseball game. Like, who really at the end of the day cares? But it feels so important, and there's so much that we put into it. So it's just this kind of safe little arena to learn about life and about yourself, and and kind of apply these different things about being more present and getting in the moment, getting in the zone, like all those types of things that they both feed off each other. I learn more about myself and it helps me become a better player at the same time.
So good, Shawn. You have like a wisdom to you that is incredibly refreshing. A lot of times we think of pro athletes as these like unobtainable mountaintops that we could never relate to in any sort of way, but you do a fantastic job of like relating to us, the everyman, and really like glorifying the game of baseball and the difficulty that goes into it and the mental aspect of it. On your way out, do you have any last words or parting advice for any young viewer of this show that wants to be a pro, that wants to be great at what they do in whatever arena of life they choose?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think the key, as much as I don't love, all of this author, but the 10,000 hours, I mean, you gotta just work. You gotta,
Gladwell.
You gotta put Gladwell, exactly. I mean, you gotta put the time in. You gotta, even if, especially like hitting, there's a lot of the hitting philosophies, a whole other show aren't, necessarily, I don't agree with the kind of the newer age approach of kind of
launch angle
and all this stuff. Launch angle, all this stuff. But I will say, just getting the reps, even if you're doing things wrong in some ways, but it's just like hitting. Like that's the hand-eye and kind of learning where the bat is compared to where you think it is and all that stuff. You figure it out. You can always change and adjust your swing and all that stuff. But it's playing wiffle ball, playing, hitting off a tee. It doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're, constantly doing that skill. I think it's the same in a lot of sports like tennis. Maybe a little different if you're a wide receiver, because if you're really fast and can learn to run routes, you can, learn how to catch the ball, and you could learn it later in life. But I think hitting, tennis, golf, like those really high skill hand-eye coordination things, you just got to do it. You got to do a lot.
I love in the age of all this new technology, it's like the best thing to do, hit off a tee. It's still that way.
It is.
Shawn, thank you so much for doing this, man. This meant so much. I'm going to be cutting this up and then putting it out on YouTube probably tomorrow.
Nice.
So I'll let you know when it's up, man. Thank you so much,
Cool.
Shawn.
Yeah, congrats on your show. Good luck.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon, Shawn.